The small alien ship Stellar Harmony drifted through empty space like a dead leaf in the wind. Its lights flickered weakly against the endless darkness. Inside the ship, 12 crew members from the Kalari Federation tried not to panic, but fear filled the air like thick smoke. Chief Researcher Velthara pressed her six-fingered hand against the cold metal wall of the bridge. Her blue skin had turned pale gray from worry. The ship's main screen showed the same terrible sight it had shown. For 3 weeks, nothing but black space and distant stars that seemed too far away to help. "Still no response to our distress signal," reported her second-in-command, Zektor. His voice cracked like dried paper. "The nearest space station is 40 light-years away. Even if they heard us, they would never come this far." Velthara closed, her large dark eyes. 3 weeks ago, they had been excited scientists studying the beautiful Omega Nebula. They wanted to learn about the strange energy waves that came from the colorful gas clouds. It was supposed to be a simple research mission. Nothing dangerous, nothing that could go wrong. But everything had gone wrong. The ship's new experimental drive had exploded without warning. The blast killed 2 crew members instantly and left the others stranded in the worst part of space anyone could imagine. They were in the dead zones, the empty regions where no smart species ever traveled, the places where ships went to disappear forever. "How much air do we have left?" Velthara asked, though she already knew the answer would be bad. Zektor looked at his small computer screen. His hand shook as he read the numbers. 8 days. Maybe 9 if we slow down our breathing and move less. 9 days. Velthara felt her heart sink deeper into her chest. The Kalari had 2 hearts, and right now both of them felt like they were made of heavy stone. 9 days to live, and no one was coming to help them. She walked slowly through the damaged ship. In the small medical room, Dr. Nexara took care of the wounded crew members. 3 aliens lay on metal beds, their bodies wrapped in white bandages. They breathed slowly and looked very tired. "How are they doing?" Velthara asked softly. Dr. Nexara shook her head. "Not good. Genkill has internal bleeding that I cannot stop with our broken medical tools. Corvell has a head injury that gets worse every day. And Laxington—" She paused and looked very sad. "Laxington will not live through the night." Velthara felt tears form in her eyes. These were her friends, her family. They had worked together for 5 years, traveling to different worlds and making amazing discoveries. Now they would all die in this empty, cold place where no one would ever find their bodies. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Maltrek hit the broken drive core with his tools. Sparks flew from the damaged metal, and he jumped back with a curse in his native language. "Can you fix it?" Velthara asked, though she had asked the same question every day. "No," Maltrek said, wiping sweat from his green forehead. "The quantum matrix is completely destroyed. Even if I had a full repair station and a team of 20 engineers, it would take months to rebuild. With what we have here?" He gestured at his small box of tools. "It is impossible." Velthara nodded slowly. She had expected this answer, but it still hurt to hear it. That night, she sat alone in her small captain's room and recorded a message for her family back home on Kalaris. "Prime." Her voice shook as she spoke to the small recording device. "My dear parents and sister Yelnara, if you ever hear this message, know that I love you more than all the stars in the sky. We tried our best to return home, but sometimes the universe has other plans. Do not be sad for us. We lived good lives, full of wonder and discovery. We saw things that no Kalari had ever seen before. Beautiful nebulas, strange new worlds and mysteries that filled our hearts with joy." She paused and wiped tears from her blue cheeks. "Take care of each other. Love each other. And remember us when you look up at the night sky. We will be among the stars, finally at peace." The next morning, Laxington died quietly in his sleep. The crew held a small ceremony and released his body into space, as was their tradition. They watched through the windows as his body drifted away into the darkness, becoming another lost soul in the endless void. "At least he does not have to suffer anymore," Dr. Nexara said, but her voice sounded hollow and empty. The days passed like slow torture. The crew tried to stay busy by fixing small things on the ship. but everyone knew they were just waiting to die. Food became harder to find. Water had to be carefully measured. The air started to smell stale and thick. On the 25th day of being stranded, Communications Officer Velkan noticed something strange on his equipment. "Chief Researcher," he called out with excitement in his voice, "I am detecting something unusual." Velthera rushed to his station. "What is it? Another ship?" I am not sure," Velkan said, staring at his screen with wide eyes. "There is a massive energy signature approaching from the outer rim of this sector. It is moving very fast. Too fast for a normal ship." "How massive?" Velthara asked, her heart starting to beat faster. Velkan checked his readings twice before answering. "Bigger than anything I have ever seen. The energy output is... it is impossible. No known species builds ships that large." Hope and fear fought in Velthara's chest. A ship meant rescue, but a ship this big and powerful could also mean danger, pirates, slavers, or worse, the war fleets of species that did not like aliens from the Kalari Federation. "Should we stop sending the distress signal?" Zektor asked nervously. Velthara thought for a long moment. They had two choices: keep calling for help and risk attracting enemies, or stay silent and die slowly as their air ran out. "Keep broadcasting," she decided. "We are already dying. At least this way we have a chance." The unknown ship came closer. Hour by hour, the energy readings grew stronger. Whatever was approaching them was huge beyond imagination. It moved through space like nothing could stop it. On the morning of the 26th day, Velkan shouted from his station, "Contact! Visual contact!" Everyone rushed to the main viewing screen. What they saw made them gasp in shock and wonder. From Poe. The swirling darkness of deep space came a ship unlike anything in their databases. It was long and dark, covered in scars from countless battles. Weapons bristled from its hull like the spines of a dangerous animal. It moved with purpose and power, cutting through space like a blade through water. "By the sacred stars," Velthara whispered, "what is that thing?" The massive warship slowed as it approached their tiny research vessel. Its size became clear. It was more than 20 times longer than their ship and probably 100 times heavier. This was not a ship built for exploration or trade. This was a weapon of war. "They are scanning us," Velkan reported, his voice shaking. "Are they responding to our distress signal?" Zektor asked. Before anyone could answer, their communication system crackled to life. A deep, strong voice spoke in perfect Kalari language. "Research. Vessel Stellar Harmony. This is Captain Jinha of the human warship Indomitable Will. We received your distress call. Prepare for rescue operations." The word human hit the crew like a lightning bolt. Humans were supposed to be extinct, gone from the galaxy for centuries. Everyone knew the stories. Primitive creatures who had been driven away by the civilized. Species for being too violent and dangerous. But here was a human ship, massive and powerful, offering to save them. Velthara's hands shook as she reached for the communication controls. "This is Chief Researcher Velthara of the Stellar Harmony," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. We accept your help." The response came immediately, firm and confident. "Good. Hold position. We are coming alongside. Do not be afraid." As the enormous human warship moved closer, Velthara wondered if they were about to be rescued by ghosts, or if they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The human warship Indomitable Will moved through space like a sleeping giant waking up. Its dark hull was covered in old battle scars and weapon marks. Strange symbols were painted on its sides in white and gold. The ship looked ancient but powerful, like a sword that had been used in 1,000 fights. On the bridge of the massive vessel, Captain Jinha stood with his arms crossed behind his back. He was a tall man with short black hair that was starting to turn gray at the sides. His face was weathered and lined from years of hard living, but his dark eyes were sharp and alert. A long scar ran from his left ear to his chin, telling the story of an old battle. "Distance to the alien vessel?" Jinha asked in a calm voice. 2 kilometers and closing, Captain," replied his navigator, Lieutenant Park. She was a young woman with quick hands and bright eyes, who had grown up on warships like this one. Harin, the ship's tactical officer, looked up from her weapon controls. She was a serious woman in her 30s with intelligent eyes and steady hands. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and she wore the dark blue uniform of the human fleet. "Captain, we are exposing ourselves to unknown aliens," Harin said quietly. "If they report our position to the Galactic Council, we could face another war fleet." Jinha turned to look at her. His expression was patient but firm. "They are dying out there, Harin. That is all I need to know." "But sir, what if this is a trap? What if they are working with the hegemony forces that have been hunting our settlements?" Jinha walked to the main viewing screen and stared at the small alien ship. It was barely the size of one of his fighter craft. He could see the damage to its hull, the flickering lights, and the way it drifted helplessly through space. "Look at them, Harin," he said softly. "Does that look like a trap to you? That ship is dying. Those people inside are probably breathing their last clean air. If we do not help them, they will be dead in a few days." From the engineering station, Chief Engineer Quan looked up from his computer screens. He was a stocky man with strong hands and a kind face. Oil stains marked his work clothes, and his tool belt hung heavy around his waist. "Captain, I have been scanning their ship," Quan reported. "Their life support is failing badly. I count 12 life signs, but they are getting weaker. They have maybe 6 or 7 days of air left." Jinha nodded grimly. "Then we have no time to waste. Prepare docking procedures and send a medical team to the dock bay." "Yes, sir," Harin replied, though worry still showed in her voice. The Indomitable Will was not just a warship. It was a mobile city that had been Jinha's home for 15 years. Inside its thick metal walls lived over 3,000 humans, men, women, and children who had never seen a planet's surface. They were the descendants of the humans who had been driven from civilized space centuries ago. The ship's corridors were wide and well lit. Children ran and played in the parks that had been built inside the vessel. Families lived in small apartments, with real windows that showed the stars outside. Schools, hospitals, workshops, and even small farms filled the ship's many levels. This was humanity now. Not the primitive savages that the galaxy remembered, but a people who had learned to make their homes among the stars themselves. "Dock Bay 7 is ready, Captain," reported Lieutenant Park. "The alien ship is small enough to fit inside completely." "Good. Bring them aboard." The Stellar Harmony was pulled gently into the human ship's massive dock bay. The Kalari crew pressed their faces against their windows and stared in amazement. The dock bay was bigger than their entire ship. Strange. Machines and vehicles filled the space. Human workers in protective suits moved around, preparing to help them. On the bridge of the Stellar Harmony, Velthara felt her hearts beating fast with fear and hope. The human voice came over their radio again. "Stellar Harmony, this is Captain Jinha. We have you safely in our dock bay. Please prepare to be boarded. Our medical team is ready to help your wounded." "Boarded?" Sector whispered nervously. "What if they want to capture us?" Velthara thought for a moment. They had no choice anyway. They could not run, they could not fight, and they would die if they stayed in their ship. At least this way, they might live. "We welcome your help, Captain Jinha," she said into the radio. "But please know that we have wounded crew members who need immediate medical attention." "Understood. Our doctors are the best in this part of space. Your people will be taken care of." A few minutes later, the airlock door of the Stellar Harmony opened with a soft hiss. Velthara and her crew waited nervously, not knowing what to expect. The first human to enter was Captain Jinha himself. He was tall and moved with the confidence of someone who had commanded ships for many years. Behind him came a medical team carrying equipment that looked advanced and well-maintained. Jinha stopped in front of Velthara and gave a small bow of respect. When he spoke, his voice was gentle and his Kalari language was perfect. "Chief Researcher Velthara, I am Captain Jinha of the Human Deep Space Fleet. We are here to help you and your crew. You are safe now." Velthara stared at him in shock. The stories about humans said they were brutal and violent. But this man spoke with kindness and showed respect for her people. His eyes were warm and friendly, not cold and dangerous. You speak our language very well," she managed to say. Jinha smiled slightly. Humans have had a long time to learn many languages. We meet many different species in the deep spaces of the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief medical officer, moved past them toward the wounded crew members. She was a middle-aged woman with gentle hands and a calm manner. She knelt beside the injured Kalari and began scanning them with her medical equipment. "This one has internal bleeding," she said in perfect Kalari. "We need to get him to our medical bay immediately." "You have medical facilities that can help him?" Dr. Nixara asked hopefully. "Of course," Dr. Kim replied. "Our medical bay has equipment that can fix almost any injury. Do not worry. Your friends will live." Within an hour, all the wounded Kalari had been moved to the human medical bay. The rest of the crew was escorted through the corridors of the indomitable will. They walked in amazement, staring at everything around them. The human ship was nothing like they had expected. It was clean and bright. Human children ran past them, laughing and playing games. Families sat together in small gardens where real plants grew under artificial sunlight. The walls were decorated with paintings and photographs of beautiful worlds. "This is not a military ship," Velthara whispered to Zektor. "This is a home." They were taken to comfortable rooms with real beds and clean clothes. Hot food was brought to them, simple but delicious meals that had been prepared with care. For the first time in weeks, they felt safe and warm. That evening, Captain Jinha visited Velthara in her guest room. He carried a cup of hot tea and offered it to her with a smile. "How are your crew members doing?" he asked, sitting down in a chair across from her. "Dr. Kim says they will all recover completely," Velthara replied. "We cannot thank you enough. But I must ask, why did you save us? Your people were driven from the galaxy centuries ago. You have no reason to help aliens who belong to the same governments that exiled you." Jinha was quiet for a long moment. He looked out the room's window at the stars beyond. "That is exactly why we help," he said finally. "We know what it feels like to be abandoned, to be left alone in the darkness with no hope. No one should have to die that way. But we are strangers. We are not even the same species." Jinha turned back to her, and his eyes were serious but kind. "That does not matter. When someone calls for help, humans answer. It is what we do. It is who we are." Velthara felt tears form in her large dark eyes. "The galaxy teaches that humans are violent and dangerous. Maybe we are," Jinha admitted. "But we are violent toward those who hurt the innocent. We are dangerous to those who would leave others to die. Your people are neither of those things." He stood up and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he turned back to her. "Get some rest, Chief Researcher. Tomorrow, my engineer Quan will begin repairs on your ship. You will be able to return home safely. You are fixing our ship for free?" Jinha paused at the doorway. "We help because we can," he said simply. "No other reason is needed." After he left, Velthara sat alone in her comfortable room, trying to understand what she had learned. Everything the galaxy believed about humans was wrong. They were not the primitive monsters from the old stories. They were something else entirely, something that the galaxy had lost when they drove humanity away, something that maybe the galaxy needed to learn again. 3 days had passed since the Kalari crew had been rescued by the indomitable will. Velthara woke each morning expecting to find guards at her door or chains around her wrists. Instead, she found fresh flowers in a small vase by her window and breakfast waiting on her table. The human ship was unlike anything she had ever seen. It was not just a warship. It was an entire world floating through space. As she walked through the corridors with her crew, they discovered wonders that made no sense according to everything they knew about humans. On level 7, they found a school where human children learned mathematics, science, and art. The teacher, a kind woman named Ms. Lee, invited the Kalari visitors to sit in on a lesson. The children asked excited questions about their blue skin and their home planet. There was no fear in their young faces, only curiosity and joy. "Do you really have 2 hearts?" asked a little boy named Tommy. his eyes wide with wonder. Velthara smiled and nodded. Yes, would you like to listen? She took his small hand and placed it on her chest. The boy's face lit up as he felt the double rhythm of her heartbeat. That is so cool, Tommy exclaimed. The other children gathered around wanting to hear too. Their laughter filled the classroom like music. Ms. Lee apologized for the children's excitement. I hope they are not bothering you. They have never met aliens before. They are wonderful, Velthara replied honestly. On my world, children are taught to fear humans, but these children show only kindness. Ms. Lee looked sad for a moment. Fear is what drove us away from the galaxy in the first place. We hoped that time would heal those wounds, but perhaps some scars run too deep. On level 12, they found the medical bay where Dr. Nexara spent most of her time. She was amazed by the human medical equipment and techniques. Dr. Kim had not only saved the wounded Kalari crew members, but had taught Nexara new ways to treat injuries and diseases. This scanner can see inside a body without cutting it open, Dr. Kim explained as she showed Nexara the equipment, and this machine can repair damaged organs by guiding the body's own healing process. Such technology must be very expensive, Dr. Nexara said. We have heard that humans are poor and lack resources. Dr. Kim laughed softly. Poor? Look around. We have everything we need. We built all of this ourselves, using materials from asteroids and dead worlds that no one else wanted. In the engineering section, Chief Engineer Quan worked day and night to repair the stellar harmony. Moltrek, the Kalari engineer, watched in amazement as Quan fixed their broken drive core, using tools and techniques that seemed impossible. How do you know so much about Kalari technology? Moltrek asked. Our ships are very different from human designs. Quan looked up from his work, his face covered in grease and sweat. I have fixed ships from dozens of different species over the years. When you live in the deep space regions, you meet everyone eventually. Pirates, traders, refugees, they all need repairs sometimes. And you help them all? Of course, Quan said simply. A broken ship in deep space means death. We do not let people die if we can prevent it. Moltrek was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, What do you want in return for fixing our ship? Quan stopped working and looked at him with surprise. Want in return? Nothing. We help because we can. But surely you need something. Payment? Trade goods? Information? Quan shook his head. The only payment we need is knowing that you will make it home safely to your families. That evening, Captain Jinha invited Velthara to join him for dinner in his private quarters. She expected a formal military meal with guards and interrogation. Instead, she found a simple room with comfortable furniture and family photographs on the walls. Jinha's quarters looked like a normal family home. There were books on shelves, paintings of Earth landscapes, and a small kitchen where he prepared their meal himself. The food was simple but delicious, rice, vegetables, and spiced meat that reminded her of her grandmother's cooking. You cook your own food? Velthara asked, surprised. Of course, Jinha replied with a smile. Cooking helps me think, and sharing a meal is how humans show friendship. As they ate, Jinha told her about his life. He had been born on the indomitable Will 38 years ago. His parents were part of the original crew that had fled from the inner systems when the Galactic Council declared humans too dangerous to live among civilized species. I have never seen Earth, Jinha said quietly. None of us have. The planet of our birth is forbidden to us, but we carry Earth in our hearts, and we have made new homes among the stars. Do you ever want to return to the inner systems? Velthara asked. Jinha was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, but not to conquer or take revenge, only to show them that we are not the monsters they think we are. After dinner, Jinha took Velthara on a tour of his ship. They visited the hydroponic gardens where vegetables and fruits grew under artificial sunlight. They saw the workshops where human craftspeople made furniture, tools, and works of art. They walked through the residential areas where families lived in comfortable homes with their own small spaces of privacy. In the observation deck, they met Harin, who was off duty and watching the stars with her young daughter, Minjung. The little girl was 7 years old with bright eyes and a curious mind. "Mama, why are the alien lady's eyes so big?" Minjung asked innocently. Harin looked embarrassed. "Minjung, that is not polite to ask." But Velthara laughed and knelt down, to the child's level. "My eyes are big so I can see in the dark better than humans can. On my homeworld, we have very long nights." "That is so smart," Minjung said. "I wish I had big eyes like yours. And I wish I had small, pretty eyes like yours," Velthara replied, making the little girl giggle. Harin smiled at the exchange. Later, when Minjung went to play with other children, she spoke quietly to Velthara. "I was born on this ship too," Harin said. "My parents never told me much about the old days when humans lived on planets. They said it was better to look forward than backward. Do you think they were right?" Harin watched her daughter play with human and alien children together. "I think they were wise. The past is full of pain. But the future?" She gestured toward the playing children. "The future can be better." On their 4th day aboard the ship, Velthara made a discovery that changed everything she thought she knew about humans. She was walking through a corridor when she heard strange music coming from a large room. Inside, she found over 100 humans gathered in what looked like a memorial service. Captain Jinha stood at the front of the room, speaking to the assembled crowd. Behind him was a wall covered with thousands of names written in gold letters. As Velthara listened, she realized what she was hearing. Jinha was reading the names of humans who had died in the exodus from the inner systems. Men, women, and children who had been killed when their ships were attacked, or who had died from sickness and starvation in the early years of exile. "We remember Commander Sarah Chen, who died defending a refugee ship from pirates," Jinha read. "We remember Engineer David Park, who gave his life to save a failing colony ship. We remember little Anna Kim, who died of fever because we had no medicine." The crowd responded together. "They live on in our hearts. Their sacrifice guides our path." Velthara felt tears running down her blue cheeks. This was not a military ceremony or a political rally. This was a people honoring their dead and remembering their history. The humans had suffered greatly, but they had not let that suffering make them cruel or bitter. After the ceremony, she approached Jinha. "I did not know about the memorial. How many died in the exodus?" Jinha's face was serious and sad. "Over 2 million in the first 10 years. Starvation, disease, attacks by those who thought we were fair game because we were exiled. We lost entire colony ships to accidents and warfare." "I am so sorry," Velthara said softly. "The galaxy never talks about the cost of the human exile." "The galaxy prefers to forget," Jinha replied. "It is easier to believe we were monsters who deserved our fate than to admit that innocent people died for the crimes of a few, and yet you saved us. You help others even though the galaxy abandoned you." Jinha looked at the wall of names behind them. "Because we remember what it feels like to be helpless and alone. We remember what it means to call for help and hear only silence. No one should ever feel that way." That night, Velthara could not sleep. She walked to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. Her mind was full of everything she had seen and learned. The humans were not the primitive savages from the history books. They were not the violent barbarians that the Galactic Council described in their reports. They were something else entirely. They were a people who had been broken by tragedy, but had chosen to heal themselves by helping others. They had been cast out of civilized space, but had used their exile to become more civilized than those who remained. Zektor found her there in the early morning hours. "You look troubled, Velthara." "I am thinking about what we will tell the council when we return home," she said. "How do we explain what we have found here?" "What have we found?" Velthara was quiet for a long time before answering. "We have found the future, Zektor, and it is not at all what we expected." The next day, Quan announced that the repairs to the Stellar Harmony were complete. The Kalari crew gathered in the dock bay to say goodbye to the humans who had saved their lives. There were tears and embraces, promises to remember each other, and gifts exchanged. Jinha presented Velthara with a small device. This is a quantum communicator, he explained. It will work across any distance. If you or your people ever need help again, use it to call us. We will come. Why are you giving us this? Velthara asked. Because friendship should not end just because ships go to different stars, Jinha replied. As the Stellar Harmony prepared to leave the dock, Velthara realized that this was only the beginning. She had a choice to make when she returned home. She could report what she had seen to the Galactic Council, knowing it would change everything. Or she could stay silent and let the galaxy continue believing its comfortable lies about humanity. Looking back at the humans who had saved her life and treated her with such kindness, she knew which choice she would make. The truth needed to be told, even if the galaxy was not ready to hear it. The Stellar Harmony was ready to leave. Her engines hummed with new life and her hull had been patched and strengthened. Chief Engineer Quan had worked for 5 straight days to make the small research vessel better than it had ever been. Now it could travel safely back to Kalari space. Velthara stood on the bridge of her repaired ship, preparing to say goodbye to the humans who had saved her crew. Through the communication system, she could hear Captain Jinha's voice giving them final safety instructions for their journey home. Remember to avoid the Nexus storms in Sector 7, Jinha was saying, and if your engines start making strange noises, stop immediately and call for help. We will, Captain, Velthara replied. Thank you for everything. We will never forget what you have done for us. Travel safely, my friends. May the stars guide you home. But just as the Stellar Harmony was about to leave the dock bay, Lieutenant Park's voice crackled over the ship's communication system. Her voice was tight with worry. Captain Jinha to the bridge immediately. We have a problem. Jinha's expression changed from peaceful to alert in an instant. What kind of problem, Lieutenant? Long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships approaching our position. Large military vessels moving at high speed. On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Jinha found his senior officers gathered around the main display screen. Harin was studying the sensor readings with a grim expression on her face. The tactical display showed 12 red dots moving toward their position like hungry predators. Report, Jinha ordered as he took his captain's chair. 12 heavy cruisers hegemony design, Harin said. They are running silent except for their engine signatures. This is definitely a military force, not traders or explorers. How long until they reach us? Jinha asked. 4 hours at their current speed, Lieutenant Park replied from her navigation station. Jinha studied the display screen carefully. The hegemony was the alliance of species that had driven humanity from civilized space 3 centuries ago. They still considered humans to be dangerous criminals who should be destroyed on sight. They must have been tracking the Kalari research ship, Harin said quietly. Probably planning to capture them and steal their scientific research. Engineer Quan looked up from his console. Captain, I am reading weapons signatures on those ships. Heavy plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and energy shields. They are coming here to fight. In the dock bay, the crew of the Stellar Harmony watched through their windows as human workers began moving quickly around the huge warship. Emergency lights flashed, and alarms could be heard echoing through the corridors. What is happening? Zektor asked nervously. Velthara activated her ship's sensors and immediately saw the approaching fleet. Her 2 hearts nearly stopped beating. Hegemony warships, 12 of them. Dr. Nexara went pale. They tracked us. They want our research, data about the quantum phenomena we were studying. Will the humans fight them? Moltrek asked. Velthara looked at the massive human warship that surrounded their tiny vessel. Even though the Indomitable Will was huge and powerful, it was still just 1 ship against 12 enemy cruisers. I do not know, she admitted. But I think we are about to find out. On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Jinha faced the hardest decision of his life. He could order his ship to jump to hyperspace immediately. The Indomitable Will was fast enough to escape before the enemy fleet arrived. His people would be safe, and the Kalari would be free to leave as well. But Jinha knew what would happen next. The hegemony ships would capture the Stellar Harmony and its crew. The Kalari scientists would be interrogated, tortured, and probably killed. Their research would be turned into weapons of war. Harin spoke what everyone was thinking. "Captain, we should leave now while we still can. Those ships outnumber us 12-1. This is not our fight." Jinha stood up from his chair and walked to the main viewing screen. He could see the stellar harmony in the dock bay below, so small and helpless. Inside that ship were 12 aliens who had done nothing wrong except try to explore the universe and learn new things. "Patch me through to the Kalari ship," he ordered. A moment later, Velthara's blue face appeared on the communication screen. Her large eyes were filled with fear and worry. "Captain Jinha," she said, "you need to leave this place immediately. Those are hegemony warships. They will destroy you if they find you here." "Chief Researcher, I need you to listen to me carefully," Jinha said. "Those ships are not coming for us. They are coming for you and your crew. They want your research and they will not let you live once they have it." Velthara nodded sadly. "We know. But you do not have to die for us. You have already done more than enough. Please take your people and go." "We cannot do that," Jinha said simply. "Why not? We are not your responsibility. You do not owe us anything." Jinha was quiet for a moment. Behind him, his bridge crew watched and listened. These were people he had known all his life. Many of them had been born on this ship. They were his family, and he was asking them to risk everything for strangers. 300 years ago, my people called for help," Jinha said finally. "We were being attacked and murdered by those who were supposed to be our allies. We sent out distress signals across the entire galaxy, begging for someone to help us." He paused, and pain showed clearly in his eyes. No one came. No one answered. The galaxy watched as millions of humans were killed or driven into exile, and they did nothing. Velthara felt tears forming in her eyes as she understood. "I will not let that happen to you," Jinha continued. "No one dies on my watch. Not today. Not ever." "But Captain," Harin protested, "if we fight, we might lose. Your family is on this ship. My daughter is on this ship. We could all die." Jinha turned to face his crew. Every person on the bridge was someone he cared about. Harin, who had served with him for 10 years. Lieutenant Park, who was like a younger sister to him. Engineer Kwan, who had saved their lives dozens of times, with his brilliant repairs. "Yes, we might die," Jinha admitted. "But if we run away and let those people be murdered, then we have already lost something more important than our lives. We have lost our humanity." He walked back to his captain's chair and sat down. "All crew, prepare for battle stations. Seal the ship and ready all weapons." "Sir," Harin said quietly, 12 ships against 1. How can we possibly win?" Jinha smiled grimly. "Who said anything about one ship?" He activated the ship's emergency communication system. This was a signal that had not been used in over 20 years. It went out across the dead zones on a frequency that only human ships could receive. The message was simple. "This is Captain Jinha of the Indomitable Will. Human Emergency Protocol 7. We have civilians under attack by hegemony forces. Request immediate assistance." For a few moments there was only silence. Then the communication system began crackling with responses. "This is Captain Lee of the Star Forge. We are en route to your position." Captain Wong of the Iron Thunder, responding. "ETA 3 hours. Captain Davis of the Night Hunter, we are coming." One by one, human ships from across the dead zones reported in. Ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields behind gas giant moons and in the shadows of dead stars. They were coming out of hiding to answer Jinha's call for help. Harin stared at her tactical display in amazement. "Captain, I am reading 20 human ships changing course toward our position." 20? Lieutenant Park gasped. "I thought we were the only human warship in this sector." Jinha's smile grew wider. "The dead zones are not as empty as the galaxy believes. We have been building and growing for 3 centuries. Today they will see what we have become." In the dock bay, the crew of the Stellar Harmony watched as the Indomitable Will began transforming. Weapon ports opened along its hull like the eyes of a waking dragon. Shield generators hummed to life with blue energy. The massive engines began building power for combat. "They are really going to fight for us," Zektor whispered in amazement. "But why?" Dr. Nexara asked. "We are nothing to them, just aliens they met a few days ago." Velthara thought about everything she had learned about the humans. The memorial wall with 2 million names, the children playing in the corridors, the families who had made their homes among the stars, Captain Jinha cooking dinner in his simple quarters and talking about carrying Earth in his heart. "Because that is who they are," she said softly. "They help because they can. They fight because it is right. They risk everything because someone needs to." On the bridge, Jinha stood and looked out at the approaching enemy fleet. In a few hours, the first battle between humans and the hegemony in over a century would begin. The outcome would determine not just the fate of 12 Kalari scientists, but the future of humanity itself. "All stations report ready for combat, Captain," Harin announced. "Good," Jinha replied. "Send a message to the hegemony fleet on all frequencies." "What should it say, sir?" Jinha's eyes were hard as steel as he gave his answer. "Tell them that if they want these people, they will have to go through us first, and remind them of something they seem to have forgotten." "What is that, Captain?" "Humans do not surrender, we adapt." The hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a pack of metal wolves. 12 massive cruisers arranged themselves in perfect attack formation, their weapons already charging with deadly energy. Admiral Kethvar of the Altarian Navy commanded, the fleet from his flagship, the Sovereign Justice. "Target acquired," reported his weapons officer. "One large vessel, unknown design. It appears to be sheltering the Kalari research ship." Admiral Kethvar studied the readings on his screen. The enemy ship was big, but it was still just one vessel against his 12 warships. He had fought pirates and rebels before. This would be a quick and easy victory. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Let us give them a chance to surrender before we destroy them." The main screen of the Sovereign Justice flickered to life, showing the bridge of the human warship. Admiral Kethvar expected to see fear and panic. Instead, he saw a calm human captain sitting in his chair with steady eyes and crossed arms. "Unknown vessel," Admiral Kethvar announced. "You are harboring criminals wanted by the galactic hegemony. Surrender the Kalari ship immediately, or we will destroy you." Captain Jinha stood up slowly. His voice was quiet but carried the weight of absolute determination. "I am Captain Jinha of the human deep space fleet. The beings you call criminals are under our protection. If you want them, you will have to take them." "Human?" Admiral Kethvar laughed harshly. "Impossible. Humans are extinct. You must be pirates using stolen technology." "We are very much alive," Jinha replied. "And we do not abandon those who need help." "Then you will die for your foolishness," Admiral Kethvar snarled. "All ships prepare to attack. Show these pretenders what happens to those who defy the hegemony." On the bridge of the Indomitable Will, Jinha turned to his crew. "All stations report status." "Weapons fully charged," Harin announced from her tactical station. "Shield generators at maximum power." "Engines ready for combat maneuvers," reported Lieutenant Park. "All systems green across the board," Engineer Kwan confirmed from his station. Jinha nodded and sat back down in his captain's chair. "Very well. Let us remind the galaxy who we are." The hegemony ships opened fire first. 12 streams of plasma energy and quantum torpedoes streaked across space toward the lone human vessel. The weapons were powerful enough to destroy a city, and they came from all directions at once. But the Indomitable Will was not where the weapons expected it to be. At the last second, the massive human warship moved with impossible speed and grace. It twisted through space like a dancer, avoiding most of the enemy fire. The few shots that did hit were absorbed by energy shields that glowed bright blue around the ship's hull. "Impossible," Admiral Kethvar shouted. "No ship that large should be able to move like that." His tactical officer was staring at his screens in shock. "Sir, their ship is not just avoiding our weapons. It is using our own torpedo explosions to hide its movement patterns." The Indomitable Will fired back. But these were not the crude weapons the hegemony expected from primitive humans. Beams of pure energy struck the enemy ships with surgical precision, targeting their weapon systems and engines. 2 hegemony cruisers lost power immediately, drifting helplessly through space. "What kind of weapons are those?" Admiral Kethvar demanded. "Unknown energy signature," his science officer reported. "The beams seem to disrupt our ship systems at the quantum level." On the bridge of the human ship, Haren coordinated the battle with calm efficiency. Her fingers danced over her controls as she tracked 12 enemy vessels at once. But she was not just operating weapons, she was conducting a symphony of destruction. "Target their command ship next," Jinha ordered. "Already locked on, Captain," Haren replied, firing quantum disruptors. 3 beams of blue-white energy struck the Sovereign Justice across its bridge section. The hegemony flagship's lights flickered and went dark as its main computer systems failed. But the human ship was heavily outnumbered, and the enemy was learning to adapt. Admiral Kethvar switched to a backup command ship and ordered his remaining vessels to surround the indomitable Will. "Focus all fire on their engines," he commanded. "If we cannot destroy them quickly, we will trap them and wear them down." The hegemony ships closed in from all sides, firing continuously. The human ship's shields began to flicker under the constant assault. Sparks flew from control panels on the bridge as the ship took heavy damage. "Shields down to 60%, Engineer Kwan reported. "Hull breach on Deck 12, emergency teams responding." Jinha gripped his chair as the ship shook from another impact. They were fighting well, but the odds were still against them. 12 ships against 1 was too much, even for a vessel as advanced as the indomitable Will. Then Lieutenant Park looked up from her sensor station with excitement in her eyes. "Captain, long-range sensors are detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching fast." "How many?" Jinha asked. 23 ships, sir, all broadcasting human identification codes." Admiral Kethvar's confidence turned to confusion as his own sensors detected the approaching fleet. Where did they come from? Humans do not have that many ships. His answer came as the human reinforcements dropped out of hyperspace around the battlefield. 23 warships of different sizes and designs, but all carrying the same message. Humanity was not extinct. The human fleet moved with perfect coordination, as if they were all parts of the same mind. Captain Lee of the Starforge took position alongside the indomitable Will. Captain Wong's Iron Thunder attacked the enemy flanks. Captain Davis and the Night Hunter used stealth technology to appear behind enemy lines. "This is impossible," Admiral Kethvar whispered. "The records say humans were scattered and destroyed centuries ago." But the evidence was right in front of him. The human fleet fought like nothing he had ever seen. Their ships used tactics that defied military logic, flying through asteroid fields at full speed, using gravity wells to slingshot around planets, and coordinating attacks across vast distances without any visible communication. Captain Haren watched her tactical display as the human fleet surrounded the enemy. But this was not just a battle. It was a demonstration. Humanity was showing the galaxy what they had become during their centuries of exile. "Captain Jinha," came a voice over the communication system. "This is Captain Lee. Should we destroy the enemy ships?" Jinha considered for a moment. It would be easy to wipe out the hegemony fleet completely. But that was not who humans had become. "Negative, Captain Lee. Disable their weapons and engines only. We are not murderers." The human fleet moved with deadly precision. Each enemy ship was targeted by multiple human vessels. Advanced weapon systems that had been developed in the dead zones struck with surgical accuracy. Within minutes, all remaining hegemony ships were drifting powerless through space. Admiral Kethvar sat in his darkened command center, staring at the impossible sight outside his windows. 24 human warships surrounded his disabled fleet like sharks around wounded prey. But they were not attacking. They were just waiting. The communication system crackled to life and Captain Jinha's face appeared on the screen. "Admiral Kethvar," Jinha said calmly, "your ships are disabled but intact. Your crews are alive but helpless. We could destroy you all right now, and no one in the galaxy would ever know what happened to you." Admiral Kethvar found his voice. Then why do you hesitate? Kill us, and be done with it. Because that is not who we are, Jinha replied. We will repair your life support systems and give you enough power to return home. In exchange, you will carry a message back to the Hegemony Council. What message? Jinha's eyes were as hard as steel. Tell them that humanity has returned. We are no longer the scattered refugees they remember. We have grown strong in the places where they abandoned us. We have built fleets in the darkness between stars. We have learned to fight in conditions that would kill any other species. He paused, letting his words sink in. But most importantly, tell them this. We do not seek war or conquest. We seek only to protect those who cannot protect themselves. As long as the hegemony leaves innocent people in peace, we will leave them in peace. And if we refuse? Admiral Kethvar asked. Then you will discover what 3 centuries of evolution in impossible conditions has done to the human race, Jinha replied. We fought in the hearts of stars, Admiral. We learned to survive in black holes. We turned the dead zones into our home. Do you really want to find out what else we learned to do? Admiral Kethvar looked around at his disabled fleet and the human ships that surrounded them. These were not the primitive humans from the history books. These were something new. Something that had adapted to survive in the harshest environments in the galaxy. Something that might be unstoppable. I will deliver your message, he said quietly. Good, Jinha replied. Captain Lee will provide you with emergency repairs. You have 6 hours to leave this sector. Do not return. As the human fleet began rescue operations to save the hegemony crews, Admiral Kethvar realized the terrible truth. The galaxy had not driven humanity to extinction 3 centuries ago. They had driven them to evolve. And now that evolution was complete, humanity had returned to remind the galaxy of a simple lesson. Those who protect the innocent are always stronger than those who prey upon them. In the dock bay of the Indomitable Will, Velthera and her crew watched through their ship's windows as the human fleet worked to save their former enemies. Even after winning an impossible victory, the humans showed mercy to those who had come to destroy them. They are not like any species I have ever known, Zektor whispered in amazement. Velthara nodded slowly. No, they are something entirely new, something the galaxy has never seen before. Outside, 24 human warships moved through space like guardians of the stars themselves, ready to protect anyone who needed help and strong enough to face any threat. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same.